I'm going to call to order. This is a special City of Joliet City Council meeting, Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. This will be a budget workshop meeting. Krista, if you can call the roll, please.
Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Quillman.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin. Councilman Guerrero.
Here.
Councilman Hug, I believe, is running late. Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudron.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman. Here. Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
Krista, I spoke with Councilwoman Gavin. She, of course, is still recovering, but she's watching the meeting. She will text me if there's any questions that she wants to share tonight.
First is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the budget this evening? Seeing none. The next is the only agenda item, which is the discussion on the city manager's recommended 2022 annual budget.
Well, thank you all for coming today. So this is a proposed budget, so this is nothing written in stone, this is written on paper. This is what the staff and I have got together and put this as a recommendation to you for approval. We look forward to your input here, so we're flexible. We would like to hear what you have to say or what you think so that we can adjust accordingly. The city is in fortunately fine financial shape at this point. So we're trying to catch up on a lot of the capital improvement programs here that Mr. Ghedotte talked about. We had $0 for capital improvement last year. So we're trying to play a little bit of catch up on that. Vehicles, personnel, some of the things that you had very in a forward manner during COVID had not replaced or not, you made the necessary steps to put us in the position we are now to be able to make up for these losses. So I really appreciate the work that you did prior to my arrival here to be able to put us in this position that we are now. So thank you for that.
Do you want to go section by section, or do you want overall comments about the budget? How do you want to proceed?
Well, I would think that if you have some comments that you want to go to, we could just cut right to the chase and address those issues and talk with it from there. If you want to go around by councilperson, Mayor, I'd certainly appreciate.
Well, let me open it up. Are there any comments or questions?
Do you want to go?
I have comments, but I would be glad to go in order if you want to do that, whatever.
Well, Larry's not here yet, but sure, we can go in order, I guess.
Should we wait or?
Well, if I would say that we can still get an individual comment. I don't
Yeah,
think that includes.
Yeah, you got the floor. Go
Councilman Hugg.
I guess my comment is more of a question. I mean, they're all questions on different items.
Yeah.
So I kind of went chronologically, so I'll start with community development. I see that between community development and finance, there's 4 specific positions. Finance, compliance supervisor, compliance officer, I guess it was, yeah, that's for finance, 3. And then for community development, code inspector, 2 of them, permit clerk, and building safety inspector, which I can appreciate, but what it seems to me, I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this looks like it's in anticipation of the single family home inspection, for which that we never have approved yet, and we've had plenty of pushback from various business people and community people and residential people. So I'm not saying that it won't happen at some point, but is it prudent to wait to do these before, or is that not what these are intended for?
No, you're absolutely, you're on the right track there, Councilwoman. Until they are approved by until we get that inspection thing, we wouldn't be able to move forward on hiring the additional people in the inspection department. But I wanted to put it into the budget now so that if we do, be in anticipation of that being improved at some point or some shape, way, or form, some inspection, that we'd be able to go ahead and move forward on that. Some of the code enforcement stuff that, for example, right now, neighborhood services, which is where the inspections would fall, mm-hmm. Right now, 66 or 63% of their calls and their work as an exterior yard, trash, woods, those kinds of things, where I think that would be better handled by a newer department under Mr. Ghedotte, under finance, and that's code enforcement, where I can have a person just dispatch, write a citation. They'd be able to do additional things such as check businesses' licenses, answer complaints from citizens. And this way we would have the people who have the more technical skills in terms of being able to inspect a building, be able to do that work. So take away the kind of ash and trash away from the experts, so to speak, in that area, and move that over to a code enforcement. So that's what we're looking at doing.
The
I
code
know-
inspectors, however, are in community development. I mean, I don't,
No,
I'm not.
the code, yeah, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
So there's code, and then there's gonna be those are in community development, but there's some in finance
Those are
as well.
compliance.
The compliance officers, yes, excuse me I'm sorry if I
It's okay.
misspoke. But that's what we're anticipating. Now, if the council decides that they don't wanna do that at all, I mean, I would not hire people to do work that's non-existent. So I have no intention of hiring the people for neighborhood services until such time that I know what that rental inspection program looks like.
It's just a large influx of employees for that department, and I just would like to know a little bit more about what these different positions would entail.
Right, and so that, some of it is again, for the, like I said, the housing inspections, we wouldn't have to add a whole lot there, but but certainly the compliance folks is something that we are sorely needed. We only have one meter person that actually writes tickets right now for the city for parking tickets. But one of the things that I anticipate them being able to do is to make sure that people who are parking in handicap spots, that they are actually handicapped. So those are some of the things that citizens expect. People that have the flags out that are look trashy. We don't have anybody out there writing these codes and be a little bit more proactive about some of these things, as opposed to waiting for a citizen to complain and then moving out on it there. So we'll be able to be a little bit more robust, keeping the city cleaner, and doing the things that I think that the citizens expect us to do for people who are not unwilling to clean up their property and keep it in a great shape.
It does, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it just seems like the way the way you just described, that these compliance people are in finance and the other ones, the regular inspectors,
Right.
I could see those being in community development.
Right.
But I guess I don't see where they kind of fit in with the compliances.
Well,
The compliance
because
with-
I'm taking right now, the compliance department people are doing the grass inspections. I'm gonna take that, the house, like you come out and somebody's grass is too long.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that out of their, off of their plate and put that into the, code enforcement, not the code enforcement, the compliance people. I'm gonna take that away from planning, and this way they'll have more time to be able to do the actual, looking at houses, wiring, plumbing, that kind of thing.
So we're thinking of waiting until we have something.
Right, if you don't, I'm not
A need
gonna.
for it. Okay.
Right, exactly, I'm not gonna, if the council decides that you don't wanna have a housing inspection program, then clearly I would not hire any more, the compliance. I would like to hire some, or compliance people, just because we don't have any meter readers, we don't have any, we give tickets out here, and if people don't pay them, we really have no other recourse. We don't do much with that, so we're trying to do the right thing by the people here in that particular regard, and so I'm hoping that it'll be revenue neutral at that point. Okay. I
Can I
hope
make
that
a comment?
explains.
Sure.
In regards to that, I'm kind of in favor of it because we are losing a lot of money. Like Pat said one night, we have these ordinances, but they're never enforced. And we're losing money, with these flashing lights. You're not supposed to have flashing lights around the windows. Like the cigarette flags are all over the place. Real estate signs in the parkway, nothing's supposed to be in the city's parkway, just things like that, and plus other things. And, like grass cutting and things like that, I get a lot of calls for that, and then I have to make a call. But if we have these folks, they'll take a lot of that stuff off of us, but also, these tickets will bring in some revenue. So, and like you said, garbage and stuff, maybe you see somebody throwing stuff out in the window, I've seen that more and more lately. People driving by, they're done with their fast food, and just the whole bag goes out the window. It's ridiculous, so, those are my comments on that.
Okay. What would you like to speak about? Do you have-
Oh, no, if anybody else would like that, I mean, I can take a break.
No, I mean, it seems,
No, go ahead.
so I don't know if you, so I could do you guys, one at a time, so, I mean.
So I guess I'd like to comment on that too. So these positions, as I reading it, I thought, these are new positions, but are they gonna be filled with current employees from different parts of the city? Or
Well,
how do you foresee if we
I
approve this?
I'm so sorry to interrupt, not to interrupt you. I didn't mean to do that. They'll have to be, some of them will have to be bid positions, except for the supervisor. So, that's how the contract is currently written. So, with 440, we have to give an opportunity for inside employees to bid on those jobs first, Councilman. So.
Okay.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I don't know, Larry, we're talking about community development and the different, positions that are being proposed. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said, I think it was last night. This 1 year of increase, we have to look at all this, doesn't create a trend. If you listen to some of the economic experts, they'll tell you there's to boil it down, there's too many reasons why you're seeing a spike in certain taxes like retail. Number one, it's pent-up buying because of the lockdowns, and then people, wanted to buy things or needed to buy things, large ticket items. But more importantly, the increase in taxes, which I hope isn't sustained, has to do with people buying the same amount, consuming the same at 6 to 30% more because of inflation. So obviously, 2 3/4% tax for the city on a purchase of $100 is a lot more than 2 3/4% tax on 70. I certainly hope, as a nation, that this inflation is going to be here forever and continue to go up and skyrocket like it has. But that puts families in a precarious situation. They're spending more for less. That does translate into more taxes. I don't think that's sustainable. So that's why, we should always work towards maybe a 5-year plan. We've mentioned that. Because a 1 year doesn't make a trend, neither does 2 years. 3 to 5 years is when you see a trend. You can make major improvements or additions to your budget and to your organization, such as 29 new positions. I do know if I have to go through them again, but we can add a few positions because we have been talking for several years. In my opinion, we've been talking about NOPT and expanding it back to its original. So certainly we can look at those new positions that weren't in the budget for a number of years. But most of the other positions, it's too early to be bringing them in. That's my view on the 29 additional. And we certainly should take a good long look at the 27 that we were able to get along without when we didn't fill them, and only fill the ones that we have to fill, because there are some that have to be filled. So overall, that's my view, but thank you, Councilman.
Well, Ryan.
I'll go down my
For another
list. Is that what
topic,
it
so
is?
if somebody wants to throw a topic out there,
This
so
is
go
just
ahead.
something, it's significant. I was just, on page 126 of our budget, it's in Public Works, and it has a line item for supplies. And, it's increasing from 117,000 to 600,000, which is a significant number, and I just wonder if there's a reason associated with
What was
that.
what was the number?
126,
To 100 and,
it was on page 126, and it's in Public Works supplies, and it went from 117,000 to 600,000. Wonder what that is. It's down
I see it.
near the bottom.
I can find out. I don't have an answer for you. So I'm not gonna,
Because I can think of things I'd like to do with that money.
yeah.
Namely sidewalks.
No, I'll
You're gonna hear
I'll
me say
find out.
sidewalks a lot.
No, I mean, if that's something that you would like added to the budget, sidewalks, I mean, certainly we
Well, we have 250, but that just, I probably get a call every week about sidewalks. And we have a significant amount of,
you're talking about the 50/50,
And anything we're responsible for as far as, tree growth and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
we've got a lot of issues with sidewalks.
Okay.
I'd hate to see us be sued when we could use that money to replace.
No, and if it's a 50/50 program, no, that's great input, so thank you.
Jim, I can answer the question on the supplies. So that's
Okay.
for, in the electrical, that's supplies for streetlights and that type of thing.
Okay.
So if you look at the current budget for 2021, it's at that 600. I think when the time the budget was prepared, the estimated year end was 117. That's because our large purchase of materials comes at the end of the year. So for year over year, if you look at the current 2021 budget, 600,000 and it's 600,000.
I see that. I apologize.
Flat,
Okay.
but yeah, and the large purchases coming in now for those materials.
Makes sense.
Thank you for clearing it up for me, Greg, thank you. Okay.
Go for
So
it, just
on-
go.
So on 170 for our motor fuel tax, this is for roads. Is that what I'm looking at there? The 4.2 to 23.6? It says construction.
Okay. Yeah, we have, the motor fuel tax fund,
Uh-huh.
and what's your specific question?
Is that for roads, program?
It goes for roads, we use the motor fuel tax for roads and vehicle replacement, isn't that correct, Jim?
No.
No, what,
Just for roads,
just for roads?
yes. Vehicle replacement is in the capital projects, sorry. Vehicle replacement is in the capital projects fund and the vehicle replacement fund. This is solely for, roads. We put some in salt in there in case the salt, contract comes in more, or, to
We need,
couch against inflation, or a few years ago, there was a salt strike and salt was triple what it was. But typically, we buy salt out of the general fund. So this is, a lot of that is the Rebuild Illinois fund, about 9.6 million. And that was, the state added that, but we were unable to get to that this year. So a lot of the roads we're doing is stuff that we've been building up fund balance, and so you can see we got about 23 million in this fund for roads next year.
Which is outstanding, I will never complain about that.
Okay.
We certainly, if we have the money, it's great. On page 200, we have 1 million for capital improvement for South Wing City Hall renovation configuration.
right, what I've done is, City Hall, and I put this in here, and this is open for discussion, but, clearly we have rugs that are mismatched. When we had been spraying down the building during COVID, some of the rugs they shrank, and they became tripping hazards, so we have mismatched carpeting in downtown in City Hall. If you notice, some is darker, some is lighter. So I wanted to, renovate some of that. I wanted to, where the clerk's office is, I wanted to build out some offices there. I don't know what that costs. I don't have an estimate for that. I didn't have in the budget to get an estimate, so this is rather robust in this particular budget. But I mean, I don't plan on spending all of it if I don't have to, but clearly the carpeting, some painting, people here, the staff here spend more waking hours here in the office than they do at home. So I wanted to make sure that this is a pleasant place to come to work, and it's nice and it's viable, and I think our employees deserve to have those kinds of things and to update some of the things that we have around here. The building's a little bit dated.
Well, you all can have the discussion about it, but I can tell you that the amount of people I have call me about sidewalks, literally, in a week is crazy.
Okay.
One woman has, and I know we're trying to do our best, and we've been very short on funding, and the guy, I'm not belittling any work that any of the men and women have done to try to help the situation, but we all know that we have to put those temporary asphalt ramps in, and some of them have been in for 3 years, that I've gotten calls from. one woman sent me a picture and she's got either 3 or 4 ramps with pink on the sidewalk. And again, we have to try to make it as safe as possible. I understand that, and we put the pink so that people won't trip and fall. But, I know that if it was a sidewalk outside of my home, I would not be happy. And I would like to see this money
Well,
go into something like that.
Would you, I mean,
I've
this
talked
is,
to Greg a
no,
million
this
times,
is,
but
this
we
is
have funding
awesome. This
issues,
is,
yeah.
yeah, no, this is awesome. You know what I mean? I need to hear from you what's important to you as council people. So, Jim, will we be able to increase the, take some money out of the reserve fund
Well,
to?
before you get to that, let me chime in.
Go ahead.
You know, one mistake that we know we've made in the past is just throwing money. There's a problem at a building like an old firehouse that's being used by an outside agency. And there wasn't necessarily a plan behind any of this. We're just responding to needs at the time. And I hate the idea, and I think we all recognized of just throwing good money after bad. Maybe there's buildings that we shouldn't be repairing.
Right.
That we should be going down a different avenue. And that would include City Hall. Before you start spending millions of dollars on carpeting or whatever, we should have a long-term plan and decide what's gonna happen here and at our other buildings. So, I know you pointed out some of the defects to me, and you're right, that they're here, but I would like to see, and you don't have the ability to do it right now, but more of a comprehensive look, at all the properties we have citywide and what's worth or worthy of spending money on, what isn't. And I know we created a new position a couple of years ago, a buildings manager. There was, a former employee was doing that, but I would like a little bit more feedback from them and maybe a better idea, long-term, what our goals are for all our buildings before we spent that kind of money on repairs. That's my opinion.
Okay, I mean, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that it's again, some of the carpeting's coming up in some spots, so when we talk about making the place safe for, all citizens that include our employees,
But that's not
But,
building
right.
out new
But,
offices.
You're absolutely correct.
And I think we all agree, this isn't the best time to
Okay.
buy either, any type of construction material. So, again, it's not necessarily a bad idea, but I don't think it's timely to do it right now.
Okay, well, we can cut that down, but it can, I would ask that you allow us to at least replace some of the carpeting here throughout City Hall, if that's.
Can't we glue it down?
Mayor, that's, what I would suggest is, if there's safety issues, life and health safety issues, get an estimate for the carpeting. Get an estimate, $1 million, that's much more than just carpeting.
Right, it
obviously.
is.
Get an estimate, and we can do a budget amendment later if it's necessary. If
Okay.
it's simply to make it look prettier, I don't see how that benefits the citizens at this time.
Okay.
Who are struggling themselves to get paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, we'll take that out of the budget, that's fine. So, take that out of the budget.
Following up with the mayor, I believe it was Mike Uwitz that did the report, or had to report, to us, 3 or 4 years ago on all of our buildings, and there was some serious maintenance issues that I think those need to be reevaluated again, with roofs and the like. I mean, I realize we're doing the fire station 8 roof is in here, but I think there's a few other places that we need to take a look at where that report is.
Sure, I think that probably that report needs to be refreshed. I think that some things have maybe possibly been, because it's been 3 years, I know that there's probably been some effort done on that. I don't know where that report is exactly, but, I don't have a copy of it. But I think that we can certainly, get somebody to come out here, take a look and prioritize our effort for us, if that's something you'd be willing to do here. And to see where we, best spend our money on what's important or not, so.
Yes.
The other thing I would suggest, Jim, for the staff, you're right. The mayor and Councilman Mudron, I recall too, we had a report, it was upwards of almost $30 million and different levels of critical down to optional. But the report didn't talk about how important each building was. We need to explore as a city government, as a council, how many of these buildings we can get rid of.
Right.
If they're not serving a vital purpose, why are we holding on to them?
Right.
It is not government's place to have a portfolio of real estate. That's private sector investment.
I couldn't agree more. We have some folks that are willing to purchase different pieces of property. So we've engaged with some people in the community here. So we will divest ourselves of those properties that are that we we've come into. Sometimes, we acquire property, not because we wanted it for any specific purpose, but oftentimes just for non-payment of taxes, we clean it up, they turn it over. Consequently, we'll look towards, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't think that there's any upside for us maintaining properties that we no longer need.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example, and not to single out one, because if we're gonna update, as has just been suggested, the condition of the buildings we own and the properties we own, that report should include why we even own them. We need to confront that head on. You take example, the Historical Museum. Why don't we consider turning it over to them? Let them own it, and it's all their capital responsibility. We don't need to be the landlord. The only reason we own that building is to, at a very, very discounted rate, lease it to the Historical Museum. Let them own it.
Well, we built it too.
Right, but let them own it. We're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars this year for HVAC replacements and improvements. And that's just one example of how we should approach this. We don't need to have a portfolio. We don't need to be landlords.
Right, I think I could get a total number of properties for the council and have you all look at it in the next month or so. But I think that's something we're not gonna be able to solve tonight, as much as I would like to. But certainly, I think we should get those properties to you. You guys can take a look at it and figure out a way ahead on what your input as well as staff's input as to what you think is valuable in what we own and what we believe the maintenance of these properties going forward are.
Well, the good news that I'll add to this, when I became mayor, we did not have a master list of property that was owned by the city of Joliet, which is absurd. So, subsequently, we have put that together. We do have that master list now, but it was unknown what we owned or where we owned it at.
So, right, I certainly can get
We're halfway there. Yeah, my opinion, I'm one person, but you're right, we aren't gonna solve that problem tonight, but that is why I don't believe we should be looking at a major investment in any of our buildings right now, until we have a better idea comprehensively what we need to do.
Okay. Well, have you looked at some of the line items in the building? I mean, some of the stuff like at Bide Park, et cetera, the roof and stuff like that, are you?
They're in dire straits there with that roof.
Right, yeah.
So I'm just trying to find my right and left limits here
No. I don't disagree. Again, you need a roof on a functioning building. I guess I was thinking more about improvements or build outs. I would pair back.
I'm talking about, okay, yeah, improvements and build out, I agree. I'll stop work on that. But, I mean, steps, leading into buildings, those kinds of things, heating, air conditioning, HVAC systems, electronics, those to keep buildings that we have functioning now, that falls under the broad umbrella of capital improvements. And you guys, I just want to make sure I got this clear. You're talking about if I'm adding spaces or gonna build out parts of City Hall differently, that you clearly that's not to be done.
Agreed.
So, okay, just want to make sure that I got it. So I agree, that's fine.
I have my last thing, and then you can move on. I was comparing the flow chart for legal from last year and this year, and I agree that you need help. You only have you. So, and I'm just wondering, last year we had Inspector General on there. Are we not going to have it this year? And if not, is he going to be staying with us? Is he going to move into like assistant corporation counsel, or what's going on? I guess you don't have to answer that. That's not part of this, but I mean, I just want to know, are we not having an Inspector General, or what are we doing?
Well, I think that the part of the Inspector General issue we've had is that being an employee here, I don't think it makes it difficult for them to move forward on different issues because they're fearful for job reprisals. So what we'd like to do is to move that to an off-site third party. They don't care whether or not, and so we're not eliminating, because we are actually mandated by the state to have an Inspector General. So we'll do that with an outside third party, and then that would, if the elimination of that, which has to be voted on by the council, it can't be done. It can't be done by me unilaterally. You have to agree to all of this. You all do. that would then, based on the ordinance, Mr. Regis would move back to the Assistant Corporation Counsel.
And that's all I got.
Okay, now I want to, can I clarify something?
Sure.
So you're talking about the 50/50 program, right? Some of
Well,
that stuff?
50/50 is part of it, but, some of it, Greg, we're 100% responsible for some of them, aren't we, depending on the tree problems and things like that, or is that?
Yeah, so we have
Yeah.
a 50/50 program where the residents participate and pay 50% of the cost of this voluntary sidewalk replacement. But in locations where parkway trees, the roots have lifted the sidewalk, the city is 100% responsible for those costs,
No.
so.
How much money do we have budgeted for that? Do we go through it right away? Do we have more requests for that than we have money?
We typically do, we bumped it up this year to 250,000, we increased our request, we think we can address a lot of these requests. It's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know.
Okay.
So as, you know, these complaints constantly come in, so, we could certainly increase the size of the program or utilize more money there if necessary. We've got, our best guess is 250,000 right now. We could
Okay.
always do more though. if
All right.
That's the will of the council.
Question.
Yes.
Greg, do we use the same contractor then for the damaged sidewalks that are totally our responsibility? Isn't that what we've done?
Yes, we have. So we typically hire one contractor who addresses all of our sidewalk issues. ADA ramps are, in some locations, if we don't have an ADA ramp and we've been notified by the community that we need one at a location, we'll do that. That would be 100% city cost of the parkway trees, but then also the voluntary program. It's typically one contractor.
But because of the COVID or the lack of money, we've fallen considerably behind on getting the asphalt out of a few neighborhoods, right?
We have.
Like in front of my house.
See, I'm doing all this complaining, I don't even have sidewalks, so.
Yeah, we cut the program back a few years ago, if you remember.
Yep.
And then the 2020 program bled into the 2021 year, so we have a reduced program this year. I feel if we get this 250,000 or, you know, whatever amount is decided, we can address a lot of these issues. In 2022 here, with the one caveat being, material costs have gone up on all construction, so we may not see as good prices as we have in the past, so it's a little less work, but I think we can address a lot of these issues if we get this amount that we're requesting.
And on the 50/50 program, is there a cap for the homeowners or is it 50%?
It's 50%, and it might not we call it the 50/50 program, it might not strictly be 50/50. The city would always pick up 50% or more, but it's hard to know going into this year what your exact price is gonna be, so we estimate what that price is and offer a discounted price to the residents.
Sure, once they accept it, that is,
Correct, yeah.
that's all they're responsible for?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor? Yep. Yeah, Greg, and correct me, I'm gonna explain it for those watching. I mean, I get a lot of calls, like you do, Sherri, too. When it comes to sidewalk replacement, generally, most of the sidewalk replacement is aging out, maintenance, and that's where the 50/50 comes in.
Correct.
If it's a city-owned tree that causes the damage and makes it unsafe, then it must be replaced, and that's what we're working on. And then the city has to pay the entire, it's their asset that caused the damage. What people don't realize is if they have trees in their front yard they own, and they cause the damage, they are 100% responsible for that damage because their tree has caused damage to a public
That's
asset.
correct, yeah.
And that's kind of it in a nutshell how it works. What I would suggest, and I kind of anticipated, I didn't necessarily vocalize it, you know, we're working towards going from 2.5 to 2.8 million for street resurfacing and such, you know, for roads, and we've moved it up if it survives the budget process to 7 million, right? I would assume we could take 1/4 to 1/2 million of that 7 million for sidewalks. I think of sidewalks and roads together, and actually get far more complaints about sidewalks than I do about roads. And I know just in my subdivision, let alone my district or the entire city, there's a number of ones that the asphalt was put in. You tell them, well, that means probably the next construction cycle you're going to get it, and we're 3 years past it, and they still have the asphalt ramp. So I think we should shift some of that 7 million if it survives the budget process into sidewalks. That's just as important as resurfacing the roads.
Sure, and we can address that if that's the will of the council. I will say when we do resurfacings, we do address ADA ramps at a lot of locations to bring them into current standard compliance. We'll repair some curbs if they're busted up when we do resurfacing. We do address some sidewalks as well, but if you wanna move that money around,
Well, and
we'll
Jim,
spend
I
it.
might ask you, you know, if there's support up here for that too, yeah, I know we wanna have it in the line items and have it done before we approve the budget. Maybe we take $500,000 out of the 7 million and put it in the sidewalks, which brings that up to 750,000, which is a good chunk to get caught up with the number of sidewalks that are dangerous. And we still have 6.5 million this year. Originally, I asked for 6 million, and you were able to squeeze in the 7 million.
I think, Councilman, if we're not gonna fund some of the projects here at City Hall in terms of the capital improvements, I'm sure we don't have to take money out of the roadway. We could take the money from, that we were gonna do here at City Hall and move that right to sidewalks, so we can still keep the 7 million and just shift the money from.
Well, and I'm not sure though, you know, that makes 100% perfect sense, Jim. If we're going to keep, just because the money is available doesn't mean we have to tax the people and spend it, okay?
No, I
Just
know,
because
but
the levy, the room for the levy is increased. You know, one of the biggest misconceptions that gets on my nerves is when bureaucrats and elected officials say, we didn't raise your tax rate. No, but my house, right now, there's a lot of people that will tell you the housing market is experiencing a bubble. And that bubble will burst at some point. Just because their houses have gone up 13% in 1 year instead of 7%, doesn't mean that we should capture that now. And because I'll tell you what, when the bubble bursts next year and they drop 18%, we're not giving it back to them.
Right.
We're keeping
Well,
it. So
again,
we
I was
have to
just-
not look
right.
at this as, look at all the money we can tax. We have to look at sustainability. We have to look at trends. There are no trends post-COVID, so to speak, or post-lockdown yet that have been established. So I don't know about anybody else on this council. I'm not saying taking that $1 million for remodeling of City Hall that would be unnecessary for safety purposes and spend it elsewhere. Let's not take that million from the taxpayers.
I have a question.
Again, it's y'all wanna do, so just throwing ideas.
Question about the sidewalks. So what if you paid the 50/50 like 15, 20 years ago to replace the sidewalks and now it needs replacing again? Is this homeowner still responsible for that?
Yes.
Wow. 'Cause there's a lot of old sidewalks that are perfectly intact. And then you replace them and then you have to replace it again. I don't think that's right, but it's my opinion. You already replaced it once.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Councilwoman?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, and I have an issue, and I know I'm gonna get pushback from you and Mr. Ghedotte, but it has to do with the gas tax. Most of us know the history of that. It was very unpopular at the time. 5 council people voted it through. 2 of them are no longer here. So, you know, this is before the rise in gas prices, before the COVID inflation. It's really squeezing a lot of people. What can we do to roll that back? I know there was bonding that was set out, but are we tied to that decision until the bond is paid back?
I know that Mr. Ghedotte and I have had conversations about this. We have spent the future revenues on some of that. We've committed that to vehicle replacement program. Isn't that correct, Jim?
Yes.
So we have taken a bond out against that money. Clearly, we could take the money out of the general revenue fund, but I wouldn't recommend that. We'd have to pay back the bond against future revenues from somewhere else. That money, in effect, has already been committed. Am I wrong?
The money that's been committed is for the bond.
Right.
If you decide not to tax, then we'll have to close the vehicle replacement fund and go back to the old way when vehicles would be part of the capital projects fund. There's right now 20 vehicles in the vehicle replacement fund to use that tax for that. Those would have to be either not bought or moved to some other part of the budget.
Question, can someone put up, Jim, you gave the summary on new revenues. Was it Monday's meeting, right? You know, for the budget?
Yes.
Okay, can we get those slides up? I can't remember the numbers. Was it 36% or 36 million, for instance, in additional room for levy for property tax? Remember some of the numbers you gave us?
For the property tax?
Yeah, let's start with that.
It was,
because I do remember you saying, while you look, I remember you saying that we don't need to capture the entire amount, that capturing half would be what we need for this budget. And I think at Monday, I said we should.
It was recommended 4.9% increase, which would equal about $2 million.
Okay, that's the additional. So what was the increase? And again, I don't think that we necessarily have to capture that 2 million if that means raising taxes based on the multiplier, okay? You know, the multiplier is based on the levy. And so the amount of levy that you ask for divided by the number of taxing parcels that you have, and that's why you have a 1.1 or a 0.99 or a 1. If you do it perfectly, you have a 1 multiplier, right? So again, it's misleading to say we're not gonna raise your taxes. We don't have to increase the tax rate if we don't have to, we can keep a multiplier at 1. If we keep everything the same, just because there's extra money available to grab, the increase in the value of the houses causes the tax rate to go up. And granted, somebody might say, well, their house is worth more, so they should pay more taxes. Well, we can debate that till I'm red in the face, but about how much taxes we should be grabbing. But we also know, we haven't learned anything in the last decade, that the increase now could be a complete burst of 40% 3 years from now. But we never give that 40% back. We never do. So what was the total increase on your summary, percentage-wise, on sales tax?
Can I, as you're looking for that, one thing, when you say we never give that 40% back, you're acting as if we assess the property value. We don't. That's
Well,
the
Bob, that's what I mean. What I mean is, for instance, and I did do that, when we had the great collapse, all our houses were up at, say, 285, 300,000, and they all dropped to some below 200 and 210. Unless you take the time, and there's no guarantee, to have it reassessed, you're stuck at that rate until they change it.
Well, you should have it reassessed.
Right, and not everybody does.
But just so we're clear, I don't want people to be confused, when you say we don't give it back, it's not for us to give it back. If the property value drops, it should, theoretically, your taxes should be lower.
But it doesn't.
Well, but that's not city government.
No, but every levy that's part of your property tax bill has a part in it. The education, the taxes for schools are the largest one at 60 to 65%. You have townships, you have some county taxes, you have the city. I can't control the rest of them. I can't control them, but we can't control city's portion.
I understand. I just don't want to mislead people into thinking the city of Joliet is responsible for something that we're not responsible for.
No, I get what you're saying. No, we're not responsible for the total tax bill. I think we are, if I remember last, 13 to 15% of the tax bill is city. That's it.
Exactly.
60 to 65% is the schools. We can't control that. That levy is separate of us, but we can control our levy, and every penny counts. You know, my grandfather used to say, take care of the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves.
The increase in the sales tax was $6 million, which works out to a little over 10%.
Okay, and the mayor had suggested, rolling back the gas tax, and it seems like that $6 million increase, if it turns out to be a trend. It's dangerous because everybody here is wanting, a lot of people are wanting to capture money based on a 1-year anomaly. It's an anomaly until it proves to be a trend, especially coming through COVID. So many things are, just off in all directions that we don't have any solid predictions of whether we're going to stay here. Was it a response to getting out of lockdown? A big burst in purchasing? Was it a response to getting out of lockdown? Buying a new washer and dryer because you finally got back to your job? Will we have the same? Will we lose $5.5 million of that next year? That's why this budget shouldn't be based on 2021's projections for next year, because we don't know what's going to happen post-COVID.
Let me ask this to follow up, either Jim. Has there been any studies about, are other communities seeing the same bump in sales tax? And has it been attributed to the stimulus checks that were given? Has anyone looked into that? Any economist weighed in on this?
I can't speak for, I know just from reading just the news that that's why there's been some inflation across the United States is based on a lot of the stimulus money being spent. I would like to point out that while we did get a bump and increase in sales tax, we did lose quite a bit in gaming revenue. So it kind of balances out here. It's not like we have this extra money. I mean, there are certain areas of that we did not necessarily make up on. So, and again, a lot of it was we didn't The reason we have this money, again, as I said, was the foresight of the council and Mr. Ghedotte, and being able to make cuts, not hiring and deferring maintenance. So that's why we're in the position kind of we're in now. So I'd like to, again, point that out. We're trying to catch up for some of the things that we didn't do last year.
A follow-up question, Jim Ghedotte, I know last year, our building permit revenue in 2020, I think was 3 times what it had been the year before. Are we seeing that same trend in 2021?
Yes,
Is it?
building permits and real estate transfer tax.
Again, do you know of any other communities, if that's a normal trend, or is that something specific to Joliet?
A lot of the cities are seeing larger revenues. I read about different cities almost every day, and some are not. Because we have large retail and large sales tax, we are experiencing, I know Aurora's having the same type of experience. And they're the city that I look at that is most comparable to us. I know they're larger, and, you know, they're not exactly us, but they are experiencing greater revenues also. I read financial news every day. I just read today that they're predicting that the economy is going to be robust through 2022. Of course, COVID's here. I mean, what if we get a new strain that is not? But in 2020, we were nimble enough to cut the budget and actually add to our fund balance during the pandemic. There's a lot of pent-up demand, especially for capital within the city. There's a constant wanting to return to our employee base before 2008. So we have a budget that if they don't come out, then we don't hire, or we don't fill positions through attrition, and that's what we did in 2020. Now 2021, we've experienced an increase in revenue, and we're looking at replacing those positions that were not funded in 2020. But to look ahead, virtually every department is looking to fill them positions so we can start doing forecasting and longer range plans. So the budget is a fluid document. If something happens, we'll have to come back to council and amend it. We constantly have positions that are open. Just like in 2020, some of them we chose to fill because they were necessary, and others we chose to wait and see what happens. So this budget is looking at replacing some of those positions, especially in the police department, going back to the neighborhood-oriented police. I know that is something I've heard constantly. I've been here at the council meetings, so some of the new positions, it's totally up to council whether they're necessary or not.
Chief Brown, I have a question. There was talk earlier about going back to the original model of NOPT, but that wouldn't fit the city today. Is there any type of model that's on the police, in a perfect scenario, the police department would implement? Have you reassessed the NOPT areas? I know there's areas like Reedwood that want an NOPT officer that never had one. Then the areas like Forest Park that used to have 6 NOPT or 5 NOPT officers that I think are down to 1. So as we sit here today, do we have an ideal of how many officers we would want for that unit?
Yeah, Mayor, we looked at it, and we designated a few additional areas where we do need officers. Reedwood was one. We looked at Bellarmine. We looked at Pilcher Park where we've moved people. So we wanted to increase that unit at least 7 more officers. We looked at over off of Collins Street in that area, because we have a lot of pocket of areas there that need officers. We don't currently have them. Additionally, not only with NOP where we do need officers, throughout the department, we need officers in traffic, which is the biggest complaint in the city by far. And we're woefully understaffed there. I mean, we only have a few people that are working the south end with the trucking issues and the traffic issues. So, that's why we put so many officers in the budget for, next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought. So- No, it's not your fault, it's my fault, my senior moment.
Provision.
I'm sorry? Yeah, do we know, one thing I want to point out, there's, I'm looking at, there's a number of 16 positions, and we're talking about not the, 26 that we're filling that were left vacant, we're talking about the 29 new ones. Of that, there are several that we don't have a choice, and I think the public has a right to understand that too. We have a position for about $144,000 a year for a FOIA police lieutenant, and two positions at about $76,000 for FOIA, police redactor. That is a function of the body cameras, and we absolutely need that, because you know that the FOIAs for body, for footage, you're gonna go through. Some people like to FOIA it just for kicks. That's my opinion, so we have to get those. Of the number of officers you brought, we have on there, how many are for NLPT, and how many are for, the traffic? Yeah, I can understand. Chief, are you aware, I'm sure you are, that both departments, the police and the fire, chose a consultant several years ago to do a complete study and then laid out things. How does this align with that report?
Well, it didn't really. I mean, I remembered when that analysis was completed, and I read it through and through, and I saw some of the things on there that, I was a lieutenant at that time that I didn't think was relevant and it wouldn't work, and that holds true to today. We knew that the city was gonna grow. We knew that there were gonna be an increase in crime. I think when they were forecasting it, they didn't take into account the number of officers that get injured also during the job. For example, I could tell you there's at least 19 officers now that are not on the street that are injured. That takes away from the staff right there. That wasn't taken into account. And in one part of that analysis, they talked about in the wintertime when it's not busy to send people home. That doesn't work. Crime does, it's always going, and within a split second, everything changes. So based on the numbers that they dropped us, I think it was 30 plus officers, we need to actually build back up now. With the neighborhood policing team, we're still continuing to do analysis, because we're maybe looking at restructuring it with the special services downtown, with the train station. So we are gonna add at least 8 new officers to it. But then, as I said, we do have an issue with traffic. We do have an issue with evidence. We do have an issue with investigations, where investigation is way understaffed right now. So those are the things I think, it's good to throw numbers around and, do certain analysis, but it didn't hold true. It was way off. We knew it was gonna be way off, and now we're trying to get our staff back up.
How many officers are we still down? You say it's about 30 or 35?
Well, right now, we're sitting at, as of today, it was 253. We're budgeted for 262 because of COVID. Prior to that, we were 272 based on the analysis. So with the new staff, and I believe it'll be up around 281.
Yeah, I think we need to head back that way, because one thing for sure that has happened since 2008 is, and actually most recently in the last 18 to 24 months, is crime is going through the ceiling across this nation. So.
Right, and if I could interject, out of that 253, there's 9 people out of that in the academy, plus there's 19 people injured out of that number. So that's what I mean. What I mean, we're way understaffed. We're overtime is through the roof.
Well, and this discussion certainly demonstrates that the 10 new officers positions that we're creating, the 10 new officers positions are certainly not excessive. Actually, we probably need to head towards
upwards from there. But
we need to
anything is good.
We need to get 20 more after that, but
Right.
it's 10. Now, the rest of the stuff, real quick, to finish up with Jim. You talked about, there's a lot of people talking about getting back to the level of 2008. That was 13 years ago, okay? When I came in 2011, we had computer systems that were running on patched software from 1970 through 1990. We have now updated, our IT department has, so that's not a good comparison anymore. There are things that no longer are needed. police wouldn't fall in that category because that's a, you know, a bare knuckles on the ground type approach. But, you know, there's a lot of things corporately as well as in public bodies, public organizations. I wouldn't support a budget that's got this, I mean, you know, to take as an example, public relations and major events, or events coordinator. We have we pay money to them. We have a great relationship with many of the private organizations, particularly with City Center Partnership and such. And they provide great, and so do other nonprofits. And then we partner up with them. We don't need for,
I think Councilwoman Quillman has some comments.
That's all right, Cole. I was just gonna ask, what would your ideal number of police officers be at this point?
Kind of a trick question, but
I'm
I would
serious,
say
I'm serious, 'cause I know we're way down.
So when I got on, we were at about 302.
And what year was that?
That was 2000.
In 2000?
And the city has grown exponentially by then.
Absolutely.
The South End in itself is a whole different issue. We have one officer at this point assigned to the entire South End from McDonough Street South, which is it is bigger than a lot of the cities around here. Just that area. Just all the industry, just all the trucks, all the people working down there. If something occurred in one of those businesses down there, it just wouldn't be good. So, you know, that's why we've been working with the city manager who's really been working with us, trying to get us the bodies we need. And also the equipment.
Well, I would-
I'm sorry, Jamie. On that point, you do have traffic officers working down there every day though, aside from the patrol officer that's assigned there. So,
Correct. The issue is we need more.
right.
I mean, that just pretty much sums it up, because the traffic unit is pulled all over, only 4 officers, they're pulled all over the city. And you know, Mr. Mayor, because people call your office and all the councilpeople's office and they complain about traffic all over, we have to do traffic assignments, along with all the other assignments we have to do around the city. So you'll get one officer and you show up to an area for traffic and they may not see him again for 3 weeks, but he's got, 50 other assignments. So that's why we want to bump the traffic unit up also.
Go ahead, Jamie.
So, in other words, what would it take, how many, you're talking 50 more officers besides what you've already asked for to get up to par?
How many?
50 plus the ones you've already asked for?
No, at this point, I was looking at, we were at 250. Yep, around 50.
Around 50, get us
Right.
back up to par, because we're like 3 times the city that we were back
Yeah,
when you
yes.
were on 20 years ago. So I think what we need to do is really take a look at beefing up our police department, especially with everything that's been going on in these neighborhoods lately. So that's just my opinion. I don't know where we'll get the money, we'll find it, but, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I think we need to do that. We need to go back to our original numbers from back then, because again, our guys are spread thin, and like you said, 19 officers are off. They're injured because they're working late, they're working overtime, and, we need to beef that up.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Mayor?
Yes.
All right, I wouldn't support the public relations events coordinator, and that's 90,000 plus benefits. Board liaison, I'm assuming under human resources, are we talking about the police and fire board liaison?
Yes.
It's been a part-time position for 40 years. What would be the reason to turn that into a full-time position? I wouldn't support that. Help desk associate at 71,400. Not sure what that means. I don't know that I would support that. The Axon support technician, we have to. That's in conjunction with our body cams. I would support what we have under police, because 3 of the positions are required for FOIA coordination. And the other, 10 positions are officers on the street, and that's what we need. Jim, what's a compliance supervisor, compliance officer, 2 compliance officers, and a grant? The grants administrator, I'll get in a second. I know what that is. What's the compliance officers and compliance administrator?
The compliance officers would take away, first off, they would answer the long grass, the garbage in the parkway, those kinds of issues that currently is handled by neighborhood services. Neighborhood services would then be able to do more single-family home inspections, because that's off their plate. I had mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were here at that time, but right now, 63% of all the neighborhood services go to exterior yard trash and weeds. So those are the calls that they're answering. So that by removing that off their plate, that would free them up to be able to do, single-family home inspections, apartment inspections, et cetera. The compliance department would also be able to go down and look at, as Councilman Quillman has pointed out, the flashing lights, the signs in the parkway that are well past their useful life. We'd be able to do more parking enforcement. Right now, we only have one person that does parking enforcement. So those are the kinds of things that they'll do to generate revenue, to be able to hopefully pay for themselves, at least the general.
And with that explanation, Jim, I would not support it unless somebody brings numbers forward showing it pays for itself. So, you know, if those numbers are available, bring them at Monday's meeting. The grants administrator, I said at the time, I voted against bringing it on because grants for specific different departments is a specialty. A guy in Texas specialized in fire department grants and got us a $750,000 grant. Some person in Chicago who specializes in public works grants wouldn't have done that. A one size fits all didn't make sense to me. But it passed, and I said I would like a report. I would like to see the number of grants we received for the 3 years prior to starting a grants administrator, all 3 years, total grants, and what we had in the roughly little less than a year we've had now. I want to see the difference. I want to see if this position has paid for itself at all.
Okay.
You know, you have that in here as a new position, but it truly isn't. It was already approved as a budget amendment.
Yes, Councilman, this is budget to budget, what was passed last year's budget to
Right.
this year's budget. So there are two positions
That
that
are
were
already-
approved during the
right.
year. The grants administrator was one, and the
Where did we get our grant? What is, you know, maybe you can, you know, give us, I don't really care what his or her name is. Where did we hire this expert from that we're paying well, that's spent years doing grants? Did we bring somebody in that really knows grants?
the person who's doing it used to be my accountant, and she applied for the job. And I can bring you a list of all the grants that we have.
For the 3 years prior to
that,
creating this new
We
position?
have submitted for.
For the 3 years prior, and then since bringing in the grant. So I want to make a comparison. What happened when we used outside grant writers and so forth, and departments did it? Have we seen a bump? Have we seen an increase? That was the promise, that creating this position was going to bring in buku grants, and I want to say. The compliance, we discussed that. Then what are the two code inspectors that you want to add? If the compliance are going to free up inspectors to do the yet to be ratified single-family program, what are the code inspectors for?
They would be additional code inspectors for the single-family inspections. So, by running the numbers, we looked at it, we said that'd free up a couple of code inspectors right now, and we'd be able to get by with just adding two. and
Right, but
have
Jim,
enough.
didn't you just tell me the compliance officers, two of them, would free up current people to do that?
Right, right,
So this
and-
is duplicative.
No.
So we need
because-
four? We're
Yes.
gonna free up 4 people to do single family? I thought it wasn't gonna cost us a lot of money. This 4 positions is 500,000
Oh.
with benefits.
That's what that was the recommendation, and that's what,
Okay,
we're looking at.
I wouldn't support that. What is a permit clerk?
Permit clerk is for, when people come in to get permits to do building inspections, not building inspections, but when you come in to get a building permit.
Okay, I thought we just spent, maybe over $100,000, to digitize our building.
Yes,
We just
yes, we
did,
have.
so why would we need to add a new person?
I
We're
bet you the
digitized.
answer to that. I get constant complaints about the permitting and the length of time it takes at City Hall.
Right.
Right, but Bob,
At least on a weekly basis.
we just
someone-
bought that new program for a
I
couple hundred
understand
thousand.
that, but I'm talking about the situation that exists here. That is a constant complaint I get from investors or developers in our city. They reach out to the mayor's office to try to help through the permitting process. So I don't know if this is gonna be the answer to that, but I'm glad it's being addressed, because it is an issue right now.
But it was already addressed by a $250,000 computer program that we haven't given time to do yet,
No,
to
it
do its
wasn't, it
job.
wasn't addressed. I just told you, I get constant complaints about the permitting process.
Where are we at? Who's in charge of it? Greg? On the permit program that we just approved, that we, you know, that even local businesses and labor said that would be a great idea. How rolled out is it?
We're in the testing program. I can
Oh,
kind
we
of
haven't
answer
even,
that.
we haven't even given it
So
time to
let him
prove.
answer it, please, go ahead. Start cutting everyone off, let him answer.
No, he answered my question, Bob. He said we're in the
I think it's
testing
directed
phase.
at
Bob,
Craig.
Bob, I have the floor.
Excuse me, Greg, go ahead and answer the question.
Yeah, that program's actually fallen under community development. We're sort of piggybacking on it with the site planning, but it's more for building permits and that type of thing. Even Marie might be better suited to answer that question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you for asking. The e-plan or the e-permit program is underway. Training is involved this week. We have all the infrastructure we needed to actually run the permitting process. So we are moving forward with that. To clarify the question also, the permit clerk, this would be a second permit clerk that we need to help manage and project manage the entire program. So right now we have a permit clerk in the inspections group as well as a permit clerk in the planning group. Neither of those have a backup. So in addition to the responsibilities needed to help our inspections team roll out the permitting process, as well as help ensure successful rollout of the e-permit or the Evolve software that, yes, we just invested in, this is the result that we do need some additional support to ensure that both are managed properly.
Why wasn't that presented to us when we were making a decision on whether to buy this program? Maybe we would have said no and said, no, hire 3 clerks instead.
I don't know who the city manager was then, but it wasn't any of these individuals.
Right.
Who rolled it out. I don't think you can answer that question.
No, Bob, we just approved it several months ago.
It was me.
Oh, it was you, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just approved it.
So, right, so we looked at a way to streamline it because we have a backlog, such a tremendous backlog. So we're trying to catch up. This is not, this is something we need to add additional people to, regardless of the fact that we are streamlining it and making it better. This was not gonna be, we had hoped to make it better, faster. We've got feedback from many of the businesses that came here. Some businesses won't even consider the city of Joliet unless you have an ability to electronically submit your plans. So we need to do that to make sure that we are competitive against our competitors, our near-term competitors. So, like Walmart.
Well, I'm not challenging the digital program.
Right.
It's a great thing.
Okay.
But the
still have
justification,
right.
The justification I'm getting now is, I guess you just figured out after we bought the program that we gotta hire somebody. It wasn't presented to us that way, that it's gonna include additional personnel. Here's the package. So let's in the future make sure that we get the total story up here. When we make our decision and vote, we're spending taxpayer money. And we need to know what, we can't have an oops, 6 months later, we gotta add a couple of positions on top of what you just spent. We need to know that up front.
Well, as Mr. Ghedotte pointed out, we've had a tremendous increase in people applying for building permits and transfer taxes. And some of those, homeowners are not expected to submit their plans via electronic. They still can come in and get a permit via hand. So this will help speed up those small businesses, et cetera. It's not, the electronic rollout is not, it's to augment. It's not gonna replace entirely mom and pop places that wanna do a remodel, wanna build out a bathroom or something like that. So I'm trying to.
Do we have somebody from sewer and water here? No. I mean, it's an enterprise fund, so I'm concerned, it's still taxpayer money via residents' money, I should say, via, sewer and water charges. Again, the meter, adding another meter reader, obviously we're not just simply fulfilling an open meter reader. We may be doing that. So we add another one, but yet we've just spent the last 6 years converting, 5 or 6 years, converting houses to radio or remote readings. So why are we adding more human meter readers?
About 3 years ago, we added to the meter reader job description that the meter readers would be able to do shut-offs. This additional position would give me 3 meter readers, and quite frankly, their job is gonna change from actually reading meters. We have about 1,000 manual meters right now to actually doing the shut-offs. So currently, we have the Public Utilities Department, the Water Department does the shut-offs. This position would not be filled or even thought about until we lift the moratorium on water shut-offs. And based on the number of shut-offs that we get requested and that are over, to do it, we would need 3. It would also free up Allison's people to start working on the water main program. So My department would be able to send a person out and they could take care of the reads, they could take care of the shut-offs, and that function would change from Allison's department to mine.
And you've got agreement from the bargaining unit that currently, under their job description, does shut-offs, that they're gonna let somebody else take that work away?
Correct. We did that about 3 years ago.
Okay. That's it for those. So yeah, with those 16 positions, you know, I wouldn't vote yes on this budget with the ones that I mentioned in there. We don't need those right now. The other questions I have is, Rialto, they got a $1.4 million grant, right?
That's correct.
Why are we giving them $375,000?
It's, the grant was, they had wanted to use some of that money for their capital improvements. I believe that they have quite a bit of work to do on the interior of the building, even though it had been recently renovated a few years back. So we didn't give them any more money than what we had given them in the past, so we just kept the budget as is to allow them to be able to use those funds to catch up on some of their deferred maintenance.
Originally, city participation at $500,000 when I first came on the council was intended, while not legislated, intended to be for capital improvements, which it never did. Ultimately, it was turned into an operating fund. The taxpayers who can't afford to go to the theater are funding their operation and funding the corporation that runs the operation, VenueWorks. So what you're telling me is they got a grant and they want to use that for capital improvements, and they still want the taxpayers to fund the operations.
That's correct.
Okay, I would ask that be brought out for a separate vote. You know, and if I stand alone, I stand alone, but my position on that hasn't changed. The Historical Museum, the $200,000, where are we at? Is that still under that 10-year agreement that won 6-3 back in whenever?
I don't know, do you?
Is that agreement still in?
I
Yeah,
believe
it's
there's
still
1 year left, but I will verify that.
Yeah, we need to know by Monday whether this is a must, because if there's 1 year left on that agreement, it squeaked in at 6-3 back at Plainfield South High School at the time. It was the year that we remodeled. I remember it distinctly. You know, so at the end of that, we no longer are obligated to give that money, and they can run their business successfully on their own. So find out if we are obligated for this one more year, Jim Ghedotte. You know, what is the last year we're obligated under that vote?
Was that a 10-year or was it a 13-year?
I think it was 13. I
Yeah,
think.
13 rings a bell to me for some reason, and it's either 1 or 2 years left on that.
Right, it might be 23 or 24, Jan, I think, is when it ends, but I'm not sure, so Jim can find out for us.
That's one of the first votes we had, I think.
Right.
Yeah, remember, it was at Plainfield South at
I
high
do
school.
remember that, yeah. We were brand new.
Yes, you were.
Okay.
That's all I have on that. I gotta continue to go through it, you know, having received it Monday. It takes more than just a couple of 3 days or 2 days to go through it completely, but those are the things that, you know, overall, I think the attitude, the approach to, hey, if we can grab the money, let's grab it. That's not true. We'll find some way to spend it. That's not how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to find a way to grab less money from the taxpayers, and I don't see that happening in this budget. Thank you.
Anyone else, any other comments, questions? Yes, Pat?
So, address the Rialto for a minute. Yes, they did receive a grant to capital improvements. They've already started the bid process or the engineering process on what some of those improvements are. The $375 is actually $100,000 less than they had requested last year. What happened with the budget last year was $375 was given to them, and then another 100 was going to be given to them through the raffle, which was canceled. American Rescue Funds. I've read where some communities or counties have taken an amount, not the whole thing, obviously, taken an amount and put that in a separate fund for the other organizations that have been challenged heavily by COVID to come and apply for that. Have we thought about doing anything with that fund at this time?
No, I can't say that we have. We haven't really broken that out to be a separate, in its own entity to have people apply for that. No, we have not, Councilman.
Can I add to that, though? You made a good point. Will County's controlling that money, we aren't. Maybe, has the Rialto applied for funding?
They have,
And so they're gonna give 5 million to a homeless shelter on Larkin Avenue, but nothing for the Rialto Theater?
exactly.
How many county board members come here and lecture us about how important the Rialto is?
Yep.
Dan, you've been here the
Where
longest.
was our district, person for District 8, that board member, what happened to her?
She was one of the top people telling us how wrong we were with the Randy Green incident when they weren't paying their taxes, demanding that Joliet cover the tax bill for the Rialto, and they didn't give a penny to them with the COVID money.
Right.
Now, that's ridiculous.
And she wants to run for Senate? Wow.
So,
That was all I had.
Do you know, if you can, could you find out what they were asking for and when they asked it? Because that is a fair question. If there ever was a year where we didn't have to get funding, it should be when money's being given to organizations like the Rialto from the federal government. It's been directed directly to our community to be given to places like the Rialto that got hurt by COVID. That's what that federal stimulus money was
I
for.
agree.
Aside from propping up local government, Joliet or the Park District or school districts, there's money designed exactly for organizations like them.
I believe the answer was, we didn't ask for it.
Well, we
But we
asked for
did.
it.
No,
Yeah.
we did.
No, local communities didn't have to ask for it,
Well,
but,
no,
but other
Especially the
entities,
theater.
like a hotel that wants to sell to the county and get converted to a homeless shelter, they had to ask for it. But it was definitely earmarked for cities like Joliet or Plainfield or Romeoville. That was part of the package.
Did we ever get that? Remember, we met with the county officials, and we asked for a line-by-line item accounting of those funds. Did we ever get that?
no,
Never got it. And when was that? In July? We went?
yeah,
You were there, Jim, right?
Yeah.
And Bob and me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We never got it?
no.
Okay. Then we don't have the answers.
No.
For, the Rialto.
Well, yeah, I'd like to, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, $375,000 for a $280 million budget. But it's been an issue every year. It's over $20 million in funding the city's been given. And this was an opportunity for the county to step up, and I hadn't thought of that before you brought it up. I'm glad you did. Because this would have been a year.
I'll check on it again. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The museum contract runs out December 31st, 2022. It was extended for 10 years.
Okay.
10 years, not 13.
So this year is still, we're still obligated.
Correct.
Okay.
I think we talked about 13 and cut it back to 10.
You might be right, Jan. I think, vaguely I remember.
But we didn't vote on it, so I don't.
Okay.
Now, we're gonna meet again Monday, Mayor?
We are. So any other comments?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, you know, I agree, great dialogue. This is my first budget here with the city of Joliet. I did a few with the Park District, but after looking through this, 6 cars for the police, I don't think that's enough. I mean, I work there. 6 is just, I mean, if there's money that we can switch around or, you know, I think a minimum of 15, 6 is just not adequate. And I'm glad to see that we're adding more policemen and talking about neighborhood policing. So that was just a comment I had on that. Jan, who does all the graffiti, that van is its last leg. If we could find, Jim, some funding to, you know, I don't know what the dollar amount is for the van. I have no idea.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if Glasgow's office was involved, but maybe getting involved in that process, I'm not sure. But I know Jan needs a van, and he does great work, and I work hand in hand with him through the years.
Nahorsky, let's make it Jan Nahorsky, so they're not thinking I need a van.
Yeah, yep. Great dialogue on the sidewalks, I agree with that. Let's see here. Thank you for the hot boxes, I think that's gonna go very, very well for the street and roadways department. What else do I have here? Oh, the parking deck is in here, I think within the first quarter, we really need to address the parking deck issue. It's a drain on our funding, our resources, and, you know, put it out to bid and figure out what we need to do with it, as a body up here. That's all I have at the moment, so.
All right, well, obviously there's 9 of us, so you get 9 different opinions. My hope would be, maybe some revisions are made, and before Monday's meeting, you could present the new budget or the, whatever, revised budget.
Sure.
So we can further discuss, and more importantly, find out if you have 5 people support to pass this. Otherwise, we'll have to call more special meetings to,
Sure.
before the end of the year.
Excuse me,
Mayor.
would we mind, go ahead, Joe.
Yes,
I'll ask again, in an open meeting here. I'm out of town the 13th. I'm hoping we can hold off to the vote for the, till the 21st when I arrive back.
yeah, I wouldn't formally vote, but find out informally whether there's support for the budget. If there's not, then, again, we're gonna need more additional meetings to figure it out.
And that may give Betty some time to get back and, be a part of it.
She's watching tonight, so I'm sure she's gonna chime in.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
My other comment was, and this is probably the way you're going to do it, so any changes that you do, decide to, make for the budget, would you mind putting it in a more simpler form rather than,
Yes,
like,
I will give you a cheat sheet.
Well, just
So
because-
just, yeah, exactly, it makes perfect sense. I'm not trying to hide anything here, so absolutely, I'll just send you a sheet out of what you guys had asked for and what.
as fun as this was to read, I don't want to do it again.
You didn't.
Oh, you should have had some of the other ones, they were like this and tiny, you need a magnifying glass.
Mayor?
Yes,
They were horrible.
Also, speaking of cheat sheets, yeah, if you could, and I did not ask for it, Jim, give me, email all of us, the list. I mean, I know it's in the budget, but just email us the list of the page of the other jobs that are being filled that were left open. I forgot to ask that.
Okay.
Okay, both Jims.
Yeah, yeah.
Jim
Yeah,
squared.
Yeah, I'll have Kathy put that together as well, so we have.
Yeah, so we can see it on one sheet then,
I'll lift it.
instead of going
Yeah,
through the
I'll-
budget.
And I'll break it down toward new, additional and vacant, not filled.
Yeah, we have I think we have the additional already.
Yeah, you have the additional, but I wanted to,
the,
exactly,
the
but I'll put
vac-
it on one piece of paper. So
Thank you, because I think was it 29 new ones, 26 or 27 were existing but vacant, am I
Yes,
correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Somewhere
Mayor,
around there.
Yes.
one last thing. Jim, either compliance officer or code inspector, is anyone gonna help, the clerk's office? She handles all the licensing.
Right.
We have liquor license, we have nobody out there to check businesses to see if they're valid, if they're, we don't have, is that part of this?
That's part of it, right. That would be part of the compliance officer, so they go check businesses' license and so then when people don't have their licenses, they can come in and say, hey, you haven't given your license, yeah, it should have been redone. We have found out that there are a lot of people who open businesses here in Joliet who don't feel the need to get a business license. So we have these kind of pirated businesses here that aren't regulated. And we need to keep an eye on that, as what happened in Morris, when they had that huge fire out there. That was a business that wasn't licensed, wasn't inspected, and the city didn't even know it existed. So, those are the kinds of things we want to avoid, and these folks will help avoid those kind of problems.
Thank you.
Thank you.
anyone else? You good?
Until Monday.
Next is public comments.
Hold on,
Just one more question. This when Councilman Quillman spoke, just kind of jogged my memory with regards to the parking deck. So I guess that would fall under two things: that the sort of comprehensive plan that we spoke about all of the city's properties and assets, but also how I know it's something that we've discussed for some time. But how far along are we with the comprehensive analysis of our parking for the whole city?
I don't have an answer for that.
We're expecting something back first quarter next year, so they're well into it, and expecting something back early next year.
Mayor, one other question.
yes.
Not directly related, but kind of, it certainly be related to a lot of budget meetings. Where are we at with the comprehensive plan, the actual comprehensive plan? With the COVID coming in, we had set aside money, we were gonna have an outside, a consultant work, to help it. Where are we at with that? Because that's something
I believe that's part of this budget here, to get folks moving in that direction.
we have a consultant?
Yeah, that's part of the budget is to do that. Yes, Councilman.
We had gone so far, as you said, before COVID, we had a list of all the people who were gonna participate, and then this may be February, March, and then COVID hit, and we completely shut that process down.
Right.
If we can expedite that, I'd really like to get moving, because we've been talking about this since 2012.
Right. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.